Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Director Watch, an AwardsWatch podcast that attempts to get inside the mind of cinema's greatest auteurs, explore what drives them, and maybe we'll go on a few unrelated tangents along the way. I'm Ryan McQuade, the executive editor here at AwardsWatch, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Jay Ledbetter.
And you can call me ET because I'm phoning home with the extraterrestrial, cerebral thriller, process movie, Arrival. It's here, Ryan. We're talking Arrival.
It's arrived.
It has arrived.
Yeah, exactly. We're not alone this week, though. Returning to Director Watch.
A dozen guests.
Oh, well.
Pods in Arrival.
Yeah, and they're kind of sparse throughout the country,
Yes.
but no one really wants to talk to one another. Halfway through, the conversation is just going to end. And it's just going to be you and me.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we'll have to go backwards and forwards.
It's the most thorough podcast in town, folks.
No, we have one guest. And of course, it is our good friend, Mr. Zach Lotz. He's returning.
Hooray.
Zach, we did Wonderstruck with you. Now we're here at Arrival.
Human.
No.
That's how we introduce ourselves for this episode. I have a little sign that I'm holding up with my name on it.
It's weird. It's upside down. You might want to flip it around.
I'm going to be referring to you guys as Abbott and Costello for the rest of this.
This just gave me just a flashback. This is the second visual bit that Zach has done on this podcast, because he was on Wonderstruck, which of course is a half of a silent film essentially. But yeah. I'm glad that Zach got to be on what might be Todd Haynes' worst film, and now he's going to be here for what might be Denis Villeneuve's best film.
I don't know.
That it is definitely a step up in my appearances on this show.
Well, we didn't want to give you what would be the worst thing that we've talked about so far? Ensembles, yeah.
If you ask me.
But some people like it.
I want to hear Zach's Villeneuve takes.
Also, speaking of visual gags, you won't believe what I have planned for the upcoming episodes that you guys are going to have.
Oh, boy.
I can only imagine, and I'm terrified.
Yeah, he told us all about his Uwe Boll gags that he's got planned.
Wait, we're doing an Uwe Boll series? Oh my God.
Sorry.
You heard it here first.
I didn't mean to spoil that for the audience.
You heard it here first, folks.
Zach? Well, we'll get it. We'll get welcome back. We'll get into we'll get into talking about Arrival here in a second. Your thoughts on Denis. For our listeners out there, I think it's just best to start time stamping this episode right from the beginning.
We're gonna do it right off the jump.
I think you kind of have to do it right up at the top. I think it's only fair to the audience and fair to myself. So, time of recording today, there was some big news.
Ryan, let me ask you this before we get into this. What was one of the main drivers for us choosing Denis Villeneuve as our subject for this little series here?
I have no idea. Actually, I mostly held at gunpoint, but
I seem to remember that he was scheduled to have a film, called Dune Part 2.
Yeah,
that was supposed to come out in November. Is that right?
On my birthday.
Well, shit. Yeah. Now it just makes you feel even worse.
Now I don't know what I'm going to do on that day other than maybe spend it with my friends and family.
It's probably what the hell are you talking about? You're going to see Killers of the Flower Moon for the 50th time that day.
That's true. Yeah. Look at Silver Linings. They're going to be extending its IMAX run by an even longer window. So.
Hell yeah. No, I think that's
because
great.
Yes, Dune 2 has been pushed. We got the news a couple hours ago, and that was one of the reasons we did Villeneuve in the first place. But there's a strike or two going on right now, Ryan.
Yeah, I think
getting close.
When we did our old show, this was the inception of the idea of the movie series was behind a series kind of like this, where we we talked about James Bond's movies, and we were trying to.
Oh my God, that's right.
This is the second.
Oh my God,
this is the second time that's
think about
happened.
that. Yeah,
and we were trying to time it perfectly with No Time to Die, and then of course that movie was released a year and a half later.
Yeah.
So
and that one was a pandemic of a medical sort. This is a pandemic of greed.
Yeah. yes, Jade. This is definitely that. Obviously, this is due to, at the time of recording, the writer's strike and the SAG strike going on at the same time, and the studios refusing to pay the actors and writers what they deserve and what is fair. And with that, because no other films are being made right now, especially by the major studios, there's a lot of moving of films that have already been made. But I honestly was thinking about this for the last hour that we've had it. It's still the stupidest damn decision I think I've seen in quite some time, where they're moving a movie that they've already released 2 trailers for. They're going to have a big spread in a magazine tomorrow, the time of recording. They're going to keep Aquaman, Wonka, and the color purple in the same spots, but move Dune to March, the weekend after the Oscars.
I can totally rationalize it if you'd like me to, but
okay, do it, Jay.
I mean, so at this point, the decision is you push back movies now, or you have this gap in the future when people could promote their movies, but can't because there's nothing coming out.
Yeah. So
there is a hope, I suppose. When is Wonka supposed to come out?
Christmas.
All right. So maybe they hope it'll be done by then, I guess.
It's also a bit of a... I do think it's a punitive step as well, right? Because the 3 films that you listed, Ryan, aren't expected to make as much money as this one is.
True.
Maybe Aquaman. Maybe.
Perhaps,
but
but Aquaman's kind of built-in audience a little bit.
Yeah, that first one made how much? I mean,
and the DC, they're limp.
Yeah, those movies are making nothing. But that's at least a property that people liked.
And they're trying to get them out as quickly as possible, so they can
they're dumping
that is true. That is true.
But we haven't even seen a trailer for that movie.
No,
we haven't even seen a poster.
When did we see a trailer for Blue Beetle? Right, like. I haven't seen a trailer for Blue Beetle.
No, we did. No, I mean, that one came out at least 4 months before.
Okay.
Or if a trailer,
because it was a summer movie
and no one's around, does it make a sound?
That's fair. But no, I mean, it's sad because, one, we all wanted to see it. Yes, it was tied into this series, but it speaks to, I think, that the fact that the greed that you're talking about, Jay, but then also the idea of that you would want movies to be very successful. They have a bunch of movies that are still potentially coming. I was looking at the slate. They have, I think they have Mickey 7. I think they have Mickey 7, which is the new Bong Joon-ho film that's coming out at the time. They have they have the Furiosa prequel that's coming out. They've got a ton of stuff, and May just seems weird. So I think Dune's going to get pushed again, because I think they're going to push it to the summer. So they have a summer blockbuster potentially. It just May. I mean, not May, but March. That doesn't. I mean, they're kind of putting in.
There's always one movie in March that kind of kicks off the new quote unquote summer movie.
I guess, and I guess they did that with the Batman.
Isn't that when Fast and Furious came out this year?
No,
or was that April?
No, the Fast and Furious came out in May.
Yeah, you're right.
The end of May.
No, I'm thinking of Ant-Man. That was the one that came.
Ant-Man came out in February, and then Creed came out. Creed 3 came out in March. Yeah. And then Mario.
I guess movie season is like 8 months long now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it's bizarre.
Sad.
I honestly don't know enough about the. I work in finance, so this stuff is stuff that I maybe could try to make some sense of, and I haven't really dug into exactly what the financial impact of these demands are to understand what would drive them to do something like this. But it just seems like the studios are being super stubborn for no reason. It seems foolish at its very face, but I don't know. I'm sure there's some sort of thought process. These guys have a lot of smart people working for them. But
I mean, maybe I shouldn't say that too openly as someone who's trying to get money from them eventually. I mean, I could, like, they've done studies on this, and the impact of what the writers and the actors are asking for would be minuscule.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I mean, really, yeah.
It's an attempt to. There's sorry, you're breaking up there a little bit, so I thought maybe you had.
No, I'm sorry. No, you go ahead.
I mean, I think it's very clearly an attempt to divide the striking workers, right? Because this movie is poised to make a lot of money, right? There's a high level of anticipation around it. And
we don't know how much money it's going to make, because Jay and you and I and Eric, we all talked about this a couple weeks ago on a show. Eric and I had talked about this, offline. Jay and I, we don't really know Dune's ceiling. So this idea, we think, because it's a bigger film and it's more action in the second part of that book, that potentially it could be a big film, but we don't know exactly its worth. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they could be moving the wrong film. I mean, like, Aquaman is more of the safer bet, because that, regardless of those DC movies and how they've done with Shazam,
they're just dragging a corpse to the grave.
They are, but that movie made, like, I mean, look up the numbers on the first Aquaman.
It made well over $1 billion.
Yeah, it made a ton of money. So even if it makes a fraction of that, half of that, it's still $500-600 million, which is more than what the first Dune made.
That's more than Dune will make.
Yeah. So, and if you're talking about trying to move it for like awards projections or just release schedule, whatever, you haven't released a trailer for Aquaman. You haven't released you've released one teaser for Color Purple and one for Wonka. That's it. So you've put a lot already.
I don't. If they want people to see Wonka, they shouldn't release anything else. Let me tell you.
Well, I mean, you're on record. You're not big on the Paddington craze. Like, you like those movies, but you don't see the.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, they're pretty good. I don't understand all the fervor over them, and I'm not a Chalamet guy. I'm just not.
Well, I know that you've sold your stock, but
shorted my stock.
I mean, yeah, but you know what? I think that movie's. I think it's going to be good. Like, I think
one of the worst trailers I've seen in a long time.
You say that about a lot of trailers. There's not a lot of good trailers anymore.
You're probably right about that.
I saw a horrifying trailer the other day. I'm not going to say what the movie was on mic, because
say it.
I can't be. I'll tell you off mic why I can't say what it is. So.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
We're getting exclusive off mic. I'm sure the listeners will love that.
Yeah. Zach is very anti-Scorsese. Let's just say.
Cat's out of the bag.
Cat's out of the bag.
Not me. Yeah, I mean, I do think that, like, this is an attempt to try to punish the striking workers and try to put into the public's mind, at least, the idea that this is an unintended consequence of them demanding a livable wage. And so I would say, I know it's disappointing, everyone, but just remember that this could be resolved today. And all it would require is
you're totally right.
Yeah, a minuscule cut in the profits that these executives rake in. And, we should continue to show solidarity with the unions. And, anyone, I'd also say, just, I know there's a lot of speculation that people are saying, well, what does this mean for its Oscar chances? And are they going to delay the Oscars again? And they think it's going to be eligible. If they are thinking that, anyone who's thinking that, like, the Oscars are going to switch their eligibility to like the end of March
for Dune 2.
Yeah, like, guys, just get it together and get
That's
behind labor.
That's a conspiracy board that is of people that need to go touch some grass. But you know, but but also time of recording this, we're still in the thick of it. This is going to release in like a month, so we could potentially have a deal done by then. So all this conversation.
Zach, when do you think it's going to get done? When do you think it gets done?
Well, I was hoping for like end of September or October. I don't know. I work in this industry, so I'd love for it to be over today. But I hear some people talking about January. I don't know.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows until they get to the damn table.
My finger up in the air, feeling the draft, says 2024. But I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, it's ridiculous.
But we gotta say potentially, Jay, on a show, this conversation would become rendered moot.
It totally could. This could. Yeah. I feel people turning off the podcast as I'm speaking right now when this episode comes out in a month.
They're like, "What a dum dum!"
And they're like, Iger was actually very reasonable and came up with a great solution.
Zaslav,
sure exactly.
Zaslav, what a king! Good looking.
Zaslav was really the great mediator.
Oh my god, he came in there. He's like
the new deal of modern.
We've actually already seen Dune. That's kind of Dune 2. That's kind of crazy. They changed their minds. No, most likely it won't be, but you still have to have that smidge of hope. Speaking of a smidge of hope,
yes,
Arrival. Say what I did there.
Hope. This movie came out during turbulent times as well.
Yes, I think we're gonna have to talk about that for sure. Because if you guys want the true honesty, this is the first time I've seen it since watching it in the theater. Yeah.
Also, to timestamp this episode, we're recording this on the day that Donald Trump had his mugshot taken, and
glorious. Glorious. I mean, looked like somebody that got caught at the principal's office, didn't it? And didn't want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Glorious. But Zach, Jay alluded to it earlier. We got to get your thoughts on Denis Villeneuve, or as we like to call him around here, Denny V.
Sure, yeah. So
embarrass yourself pronouncing his last name when you don't have to.
Yeah, you can just call him Denny V. And you're good. And you know what? He likes it.
Yeah.
Even though his name is Denis, not Denny. But whatever. Denny? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, but Denny V sounds good.
I love the Grand Slam breakfast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Could you imagine Denis at a Denny's? Oh my God. I would not like the hash browns. Please. No.
They could have done a campaign event there if they were
I mean, sure.
Do you think Claire Denis likes the films of Denis Villeneuve?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think she's going to Denny's. I think she's going to IHOP.
Yeah.
Yeah. She seems like an international house of pancake.
All right. So my thoughts on Denis Villeneuve. It's interesting. For the most part, I feel like he's a director who I more admire and respect than I love his films, aside from Arrival and Blade Runner 2049, which I think are his two best. I was going to say that I was interested to revisit Dune ahead of Dune Part 2 to see if perhaps it would cause that one to become like a masterpiece, right, by adding in the second half of that book. But, he's definitely a guy who's I think he's very talented and very smart, right? And in films like Sicario or Prisoners, which I'm not as enthusiastic about, he does elevate that material in visual and sensorial ways, right? I don't know if either of you guys saw the second Sicario, speaking of movies that came out in turbulent times.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about it.
I'm a defender. I'm a defender.
Well, I'll tell you, I saw that movie when Donald Trump was the president, and it was very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
watching it in a theater.
That movie was. You feel kind of gross.
I kind of defend what that movie means in the context of that political climate even
Sure.
more than if it had come out at a different time.
Yeah.
That movie is combative and abrasive in a way that I kind of admire. But
I say that to say that I think that, he's a very intelligent filmmaker, right? And I should also say that I've interviewed him a couple of times.
Well, look at you. Here he goes again. He's going to just drop these little things in here.
He seems like a pretty good interview.
I interviewed him about.
He seems like a nice guy.
He is a very nice guy. I talked to him about this movie, in fact, and also Blade Runner the very next year.
Oh, and those just happen to be your two favorites of his.
I know,
yeah. And they came to you probably with Dune, and you went, no, thank you.
Well, I was in my wilderness period at that point.
I kid you. I kid, Zach. But but also they did come to you, and you said, "Fuck no." But anyway,
I did. Yeah, I said.
Yeah, you said three times. That's too much. Calm down, Denis.
I said, look. When you show me Dune Part 2 and I know whether or not this movie is actually good or just hyping it, then I'll speak to him about Dune Part 1.
Cut your crap and give me both parts.
Exactly. But I actually have an insane story about the first time I saw this movie, which is
January 6th,
2020.
You just cast your vote for Donald Trump,
and it was you were like, I bought out a theater because I thought all my pals at the Capitol would come, and then they all got arrested. And
I'd actually voted for Trump the second time because the first time obviously did not go through. And he needed the 1,100 extra votes in order to
exactly.
become
and
president.
You somehow went to Georgia, where Jay's at, and you were like, I'm gonna just go vote there this time.
Jay and I actually got in line together. And then we came back with like a fake mustache and a different hat, So,
actually, from what I saw in the photo, you were on top of Jay's shoulders, and, it was a trench coat on. Yeah. It was like a real like Little Rascal situation, Muppet Baby kind of thing.
Anyway, so I was a journalist when I saw it. I guess I still am a journalist, and
you are if you're on this show.
Yeah. When I'm not working on movie sets that have not been affected by the strike. But so I was a full-on journalist at Gold Derby at that time. And you guys know how it is when fall comes along and you've got dozens of movies to see. You end up seeing 2 in a day sometimes, right? And Chris Beecham and I had worked it out so that Chris Beecham of Gold Derby, who's the managing editor over there, we had worked it out where we were going to go see Arrival and Lion on the same day, right? So we go to a press screening of Lion first in the afternoon, got some dinner, and then we're going to head over to Arrival. And in LA, you get familiar with all of the different screening rooms that they have out here, right? We look at the address for where Arrival's going to be playing, and we're like, oh, we've never been here before. Okay, let's see where this is. It's at an address in Mount Olympus. As we're driving up, we realize Mount Olympus.
Did you go all the way to Greece?
In a sense, right? Mount Olympus is a residential area.
Go to hell, Jay. God damn it.
Yeah. This story is already long enough, and it's just going to take.
And we're just adding shit to it. So I'm sorry.
So Mount Olympus, for people who aren't familiar, is a residential area of Los Angeles. It's up in the Hollywood Hills. It's up like way up at the top of the hills. So we're driving to this address and we realize that we were at somebody's home.
Yeah.
And we're like, are we about to watch this movie in someone's living room? Like, what's going on here? And then like we see a valet come and take the car. We're like, well, this must be the place. We'll just walk into this stranger's home, I suppose. We go in there and it's like, there's this guy who I had no idea who this man was. We just walk into his empty house.
This sounds like a David Lynch movie.
Yeah, this sounds like a Lost Highway. You're about to get really fucked up here.
We had no idea. We're just like, are we even at the right place? We're just going to go knock on this stranger's door. And And he said, "Oh, hey, welcome. My name's blah blah blah. Everyone's out back."
Is that like German?
And
I
that
had to say
person
that
was Robert De Niro's character from Heat.
I had to say that to not dox his in real life because he's actually Denis Villeneuve.
Oh.
No,
Bob Loblaw
lives with
Bob
Zeus on the top of Mount Olympus.
So he says everyone's out back. We're like, okay, walk out to where he has this huge balcony that's overlooking all of Los Angeles, right at the top of the hill.
It sounds very Jay Gatsby, by the way. I'm just gonna
yeah. And I look out and I see, oh, there's
a blue light.
I was like, there's
Green.
Amy Adams.
Green, goddamn.
I look out and I see there's Amy Adams, and there's Jeremy Renner, and there's Alexander Payne, Michael Mann, Tim Allen, Kelsey Grammer.
Tim Allen?
Yeah. Like Bryan Cranston's here? What? Everywhere I look around, there's some famous person. And I realize this is an Oscar campaigning event. That's why they had Tim Allen there. I was like, this is a full.
They had the Santa Claus out there? What was this, Christmas time?
Fraser was there as well, in case you didn't hear that. And he actually had to be at 2 different parties at the same time. So he was, going back and forth.
Well, I heard they served a lovely tossed salad and scrambled eggs. They're calling again.
So I'm like, oh, so this is like one of those things that you hear about where they're like trying to get Oscar nominations, right? By having the stars come
This is where the sausage gets made.
Exactly, yeah. And so then the publicist comes out to me and is like, "Here, come talk to Amy," right? And
sure.
So she takes me to go talk to Amy Adams, and we're standing outside. It's the middle of October, right?
It's probably nice weather, right?
It's chilly for Los Angeles, right?
Yeah, but it's for the rest of us, it's nice weather.
It's very nice weather. But
yeah, I live in 100-degree weather, Zach. So when you said it's a bit chilly, I wanted to punch you in the face.
Well, so here's
the problem was, and I heard about this party actually, and the problem was, despite how great this was, and there was this wonderful patio, Tim the Toolman Taylor was like performing. He was repairing the deck at the party, which sounded very disruptive.
The floorboards had to be taken out one at a time, and he had hooked up the chainsaw to this machine that was supposed to like give it superpower, and it blew all the power out. And
that's not what I heard. I heard they got Fraser's coffee wrong. It was a whole big deal.
So now, when I say the weather was nice, I'm standing there talking to Amy Adams, and I realize that I am drenched in sweat, and I was like, what's going on? Why am I perspiring so much? And I realized that when the publicist had taken me over to talk to her, she had stood me right underneath one of those outdoor heat lamps. Yeah.
Oh, so you look like Bradley Cooper or Christian Bale from American Hustle. You were just drenched in sweat.
Yeah.
Albert Brooks in Broadcast News.
Yeah, you were just like reading the prompter.
Yeah. And like Amy Adams, bless her heart, she looks at me and says, "Are you all right?"
Are you about to fall off this fucking cliff?
If Amy Adams said that to me, I would disintegrate.
Yeah. Well, he already was. He was melting.
Yeah.
I thought it was really just, it's like, oh, you have nice.
Well, you know who could have saved your life?
Who?
Jeremy Renner.
Him, the Toolman Taylor.
Well, he came into the rescue right at the right moment and pulled me away from the heat lamp.
Okay, Jay, you've done 3 Tim the Toolman Taylor jokes. I think you should have never opened up this door, Zach, because now he's going to do this the entire episode.
Especially when we start talking about the very serious themes of this stuff.
Tim Allen Home Improvement impressions, one of my favorites.
Wouldn't it have been great if he voiced the aliens in this movie? Anyway, just food for thought.
He might have, for all I know.
He might have. That's why he was there. Yeah, he was Costello.
Well, he was. Well, the thing about him is when Arrival came out, he was on cloud 9.
He had all that last man standing money.
Trump had just been elected. He was he was.
No wonder he was out and about. He was just like, "Hey, assholes, look at me."
Now, I have to say, I think that this might have been pre-Trump getting elected.
Well, this party
when I saw the
when
film,
this movie came out.
When did the movie come out? I can't remember. It was
the
like
movie came out.
It was the week, like 4 days after Trump got elected.
Hang
so
on,
this was definitely before, because this was an advanced screening.
So the movie came out November 11th of 2020 or 2016, and the movie premiered in Venice in September. So yeah, you had some time.
Yeah, so this was like, he was like, hey, you guys gonna vote for Trump, right?
He's in a big red hat.
Kelsey Grammer, big Republican too, right? I mean,
No shit. Yeah. Which it's weird because he plays the biggest like liberal snob on the planet in Fraser Crane. It's kind of funny.
Zach went to a GOP fundraiser / arrival,
and then Robert Ailes came in and said, "Let's go see the movie," and locked arms with Zach and tiptoed into the back room.
Bill O'Reilly was there for some reason, and just
did you wear your bow tie like Tucker?
It was just it was a magical evening where we all realized that we have a lot in common. I don't know.
Honestly, that's kind of
we completely steamrolled Zach's story. I think he's got more here.
Zach, do you have more?
Well, I do have one more thing about the actual like watching of the film, which was what
were the circumstances of what was the screen? What was the audio? That sounds like not a good situation.
Because I've been up to one of those kind of things because during AFI I was invited to sort of someone's house up in the hills.
This was probably the same exact.
It was probably was it like a nice balcony over here? It had a great view.
Yes.
And it was like screening rooms right when you walk in on the right.
It's exactly that. So the screening
I've been to this place.
It's a mixing stage.
Yeah, it's like a sound mixing place.
Yeah, the guy who owns the house, he's a professional sound mixer, and he built a studio in his home so he wouldn't have to leave.
Soderbergh.
And Steven Soderbergh. And the screen is so massive. It's like one of those floor to ceiling IMAX screens, basically. It's like the largest
huge
private home screen.
Oh, so this is like a good screen.
Yeah, this guy got put in some good ass quality. I didn't sit for the screening, but I went and got to take a tour of it, and it was legit.
And I've seen other movies there since then. Like I remember they had a screening of Marriage Story there that Noah Baumbach came to, and I think
that's what you want to see on the IMAX.
It's very
like an IMAX screen. You want to see Adam Driver just punch the shit out of a wall.
That dude is tall enough as it is. You need an IMAX screen in order to hold.
That's true. Well, he actually isn't that tall. It's mostly stilts.
Yeah.
And so
then of course, we settle into the movie, and Tucker's there, and O'Reilly and
Amy.
They're this is a horrible joke. We should not be making this joke.
This is our best
these
episode.
Horrible men watching this movie.
And then Amy Adams is there with you. But okay, so you watch the film. You're watching the film.
And it's all due respect to Lion, which I had seen that previous day, but it just like blew that movie out of the water.
Yeah,
right?
that movie sucks.
Yeah, well, it's just like
in comparison. Like Lion's.
This movie blows that movie off the savannah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Lion is the definition of fine.
Yeah, that's exactly. And like I totally forgot about it. And I have this. I see multiple movies in a day often.
Yeah, you go to a festival. Yeah, you're like you're saying, like you get the screeners, you start binging stuff.
Or also you just live your life, and you us weirdos very often see 2 movies in a day because we're
I literally last night I went to a secret screening of a movie, which wasn't that secret because I'd already seen it. And yeah, well, I mean, it was a promo. I went to this promo thing for the Alamo Drafthouse. I'm like dating it right now for our audience again. And then it was an advanced screening of Bottoms, and I already had seen Bottoms. But then I got home and it was like 8:45, and I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put on The Insider, and I'm just going to watch The Insider. And that was the rest of my day. It was a good decision, right? Jay's never going to get mad at that. Zach's not going to get mad at that.
No, bringing it back to Michael Mann, who was at this party as
exactly. That's what you have me here for. I am the professional.
And when I talked to him, I was like, are you working on anything right now?
You talked to Michael Mann?
I did talk to Michael Mann, and he was talking about Ferrari.
Yeah.
Like all those years. And I said, listen, Michael, in 3 years from now, come back to see a movie called Marriage Story. Because I'm like Amy Adams. I'm able to see into the future.
Yeah. You live sort of outside of the temporal plane of time that most humans.
That's why his predictions have been so freaking great the last couple of years. I'm like, shit, Zach, how are you perfect on all of this?
Because I'm able to see into the future. And that's why I was there at that moment to talk to Michael Mann, because much like Amy Adams at the end of this movie, I needed some good into the world, right? By bringing the present and the future and the past or whatever into one and saying one word for you, Michael: driver.
Yeah,
it's so.
I was
so cool that Michael Mann wins Best Picture for Ferrari.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
God, that interview with him when he was just like, "I'm not afraid of dying."
He's like, if I don't make Heat 2, who gives a shit? And you're like, all right, don't say it like that.
The coolest guy.
He seems like a really nice guy. That's what I told you.
He seems very intense.
So one of my best friends who I've known
I gotta
since
hear
college,
all about you talking to Michael Mann.
Well,
never gonna talk about Arrival.
We'll talk about it. We're 45 minutes into this podcast. But one of my best friends since college, he is the lead cinematographer on Tokyo Vice, and he got that job working as the DIT on the pilot, which Michael Mann directed. And he said that he's a very sweet old man. So, I think age probably mellowed him out quite a bit, because I've heard some stories about Michael Mann that are just insane. But he seemed to be a fan of Arrival.
The guy who made Black Hat. I can't imagine Black Hat was a very chill set. But I don't know, maybe.
I've heard stories about him like shooting blanks at a generator on set, just total wild man.
Yeah, we call that the Alec Baldwin.
Yeah. God, we're just like putting in all the inappropriate jokes in this.
Absolutely.
In this episode that is about one of the most profoundly moving things I've ever seen.
But anyway, no more stories, because then that gets this guy on a tangent.
That was
Zach,
great. That was great
though, Zach.
I mean,
that was great.
We're off to a great start.
We're off. Yeah, this is fantastic. But we're here to talk about Arrival, which is a film that is directed by Denis Villeneuve, and it stars the aforementioned Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner and Forrest Whitaker and Michael Stuhlbarg.
Tim Allen.
It does not start. No, yeah, all right.
Human.
All right. It's about a linguist who works with the military to communicate with alien life forms after 12 mysterious spacecrafts appear around the world. So, Zach, you said this movie devastated you, kind of messed you up, weren't able to not think about anything that you did before then, and most likely by the end of it, you're not able to think about anything after other than this movie. So take aside that experience, talk about the rewatch, and why you think Arrival is one of Denis V's best films.
Well, so to put this into some context in my own life, the first time I saw this movie, it was a year after my mother had died, kind of suddenly. And I think a month after my godmother had died also. So I like every movie I saw in the span of a year, whether it was this one or Room or 20th Century Women or A Monster Calls, that involved like a mother and a child, was bound to affect me emotionally because of what this movie's ultimately about, right? On this rewatch, I've since become an uncle to 2 infant girls, and so from the very first shot of the rewatch, I was crying uncontrollably, just knowing what the twist of this movie was. That was what was so powerful the first time I saw it, was when I realized what it was actually about, in the reveal of it. This movie on the surface, it's about like aliens coming to Earth and our struggles to communicate with them. But underneath all of that is this story about a mother who has a child who she knows is destined to die. And the central quandary that she's presented with is, is it worth it to have this child and grow to love this child, knowing that eventually you're going to have to say goodbye to them? And the thing about that is that's true of every single relationship that we as human beings will have in our lifetimes, because every single one of us is going to die one day. I hate to be the one to break it to the listeners, but
not happening. Not happening. Not happening here. I don't know what the hell. I don't know what you're talking about.
So, none of us knows when we're going to go. None of us knows when our loved ones are going to go, but we know it's, going to happen one day, right? And that's the bargain that we make as human beings in the relationships that we form, whether it's with our children or our parents or our husbands and wives, our best friends. And this movie, I think, explores that really beautifully. Another thing that I thought about when I was watching it this time, one of my best friends is married to a really wonderful woman who he met a few years ago. She has this rare blood disorder that makes it so that her body can't produce white blood cells. And so when they got together, she said to him, "Look, I'm just being honest with you. This could end very tragically for you. Like, I might not be around very long." And he said, "Well, I love you and I want to be with you for as long as I possibly can." And so they got married, and they're still married. And I remember having conversations with them about whether or not they should ever have children, because they didn't know if she could survive it. And now they have two beautiful children who are very healthy. And she's in the best health of her life, but she always has this kind of looming health scare around. And so much of their relationship has been built around him learning how to care for her and help her through this stuff. I mean, she almost died from the flu right before COVID happened. So that's how weak her immune system is. COVID was a big deal for them. And the last time that I was hanging out with him, I remember him saying, my worst fear is that I'm going to lose her, but I'm going to enjoy every single moment that I have with her, knowing that it could be over at any minute. And honestly, like, they have a special circumstance, but that's true of every one of us. We have to, knowing, as Amy Adams says at the end of this movie, knowing the destination, I'm going to cherish every moment of it, right? And I think that once you come to what this movie taught me at a moment when I was still processing the grief of losing my two mothers, essentially, was that knowing that death is a part of loving someone makes the act of loving someone all the more profound, and I think, like, the thing that really great science fiction can do is use these kind of heightened premises as a way to tell stories that that help us live our lives better, right? By teaching us something about ourselves and the world that we live in and our place in the universe. Yeah. And I think that's why I love this movie so much, is because it really does explore that in a really deep and profound way. And I'm always, like, amazed when I rewatch it, how well those two story strands come together, right? Because the first time you watch it, you're thinking like, how does this relate? You know, how do these visions of her daughter relate to the story of the aliens? And so when I realized what it was about the first time I watched it, I was just, you know, amazed. And
it makes a rewatch so interesting.
yeah.
Well,
No, totally.
Yeah. Jay, what do you think of Arrival?
I mean, and I'm kind of with Zach where it brings out so much emotion. I mean, you can just feel in Zach, not only through his words, but through the way that he's saying them, how impactful this movie is. And I feel the exact same way. And I felt that way when I saw it when it was released. And I feel that even more now, not just because of the different place I am in my life now, which would kind of on paper make me more susceptible to the kind of stuff that this movie is saying, but also because I think when you see this film a second time, third time, I've seen this film like 4 or 5 times. I've seen this movie a lot. And when you see it multiple times, you really start to figure out just how clever this script is structurally. And maybe it was because I was paying attention more to it this time because it was for the podcast. I was taking notes and all that stuff. But when that first shot of the ceiling of the house going to the screen door, that is just the first shot of the movie, immediately it clicked to me, oh, this whole movie is structured to be detached from time in the same way that the heptapod language is. And it completely recontextualizes that opening shot once you understand the quote unquote language of the movie in the same way that Amy Adams comes to understand the language of the aliens in the film. And that to me unlocked an even further appreciation of the film for me, which I always, this for me was always like 5 stars. Loved it. One of my favorite movies of the year. And now I consider it really one of my, it's definitely in my top 20 of the decade for sure, of the 2010s. I think it's that good. And like I said, now this is the first time I have seen the film since I've become a parent. And let me tell you, it does hit different when that happens. It is an emotional battering ram when it gets to that point. But what is so impressive about that is that until it hits that point, it's kind of just a pretty basic people being good at their jobs procedural. It's presented very objectively. There's nothing bombastic about it, right? It's not Independence Day. I love sort of a steady sci-fi, just hard sci-fi, but this is barely science fiction though, is the thing. It's a bunch of people trying to figure out a language. That language doesn't necessarily have to be alien. It could be any language, but they're treating it the same way that they would treat anything that they found on Earth. And it just so happens to be these alien entities. And when it comes down to it, you know, Zach kind of mentioned it. Prisoners, Sicario, those are films that are so technically impressive. And I think he levels up with Sicario from Prisoners as far as the film's saying something. But Sicario is kind of convoluted in kind of its messaging. This film is so focused and so humane in ways that I couldn't have imagined him being after the previous films that he had made. And this is where my kind of stupid phrase that I had for a while was, especially after the finale of this movie, which is all about this reveal. It's this kind of twist that is so kind of, the score swells and you're like, whoa, what a reveal. This is one of those movies you see when you're 16, 17, 18, and you're like, whoa, I can't believe you're allowed to, you know, have a twist like that. This is when I started calling Denis Villeneuve Christopher Nolan with a soul. That was my phrase there for a while. I have since much more come around to Christopher Nolan, but the finale of this film is very reminiscent of Nolan to me. And Ryan, we've talked about it in previous episodes, but Villeneuve is a guy who's playing off of the greatest filmmakers of all time. He's not an entirely individual, one in a million director. He is a man of influences, and his influences are phenomenal, and he's a very, very good emulator of those other styles. But this, to me, shows a level of emotional maturity that he hadn't really reached yet, and I'm not sure that he has reached since. Maybe we'll talk about it moving forward, but this movie's I'm gonna slap a big M on this. I'm calling it a masterpiece. Let's go.
I think this movie's incredible. It's the first time I've seen it in 7 years. And I don't know why it took me so long to go back to it. I think it's because the reason why I wanted to do Denis Villeneuve was to kind of go back to some of these films. Yes, it is to tie into, like we said earlier, back to Dune 2's release. But it had been a long time since I'd seen Prisoners and Sicario and Enemy and Arrival. I've seen Blade Runner 2049 a couple times, and obviously I saw Dune a couple times in the theater. So I hadn't seen On Sundays or Polytechnique. So those were the other reasons. But I think this movie was the reason why I really wanted to do this series. I wanted to watch this on a separate occasion outside of seeing it probably under the worst circumstances. I think you could probably go watch a movie. You're asking this movie or any movie after the 2016 election to heal you.
But it's so weird how it feels like an immediate reaction to that.
It
moment,
does,
even though it was made completely
separate
of any of that. It's
completely agree with you,
a
Jay.
little bit like a balm.
I know. I mean, Jay, I was at the time. I was my first job out of college, and they had let us all go 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. And I'm sitting at home without a job, right out of college. I literally worked there for like not even a full year, like 10, 11 months. This election happens. What happens with Trump. And I'm sitting there going, well, as a Latino person, as a person, member of the LGBTQ community, as a person that knows so many friends and people that are trans, or people that are black, or people that are Asian, or people that are just in low poverty situations, or just different than who the president of the United States stature is at this point. It's not, you don't feel good. You haven't felt hopeless by the results of a election in a very long time. And Zach and I have talked about this before, and Jay and I have talked about it a little bit. Just, you are in such a weird space, and we were such a weird space because we didn't know what would happen. And obviously it was some of the stupidest years of politics and policy and everything in our history. But in that moment,
you're Tim Allen.
Yeah, he's running in this year. But I just felt like I needed to get out of the house to see to see anything. And I remember going to a Draft House screening. It was like 11 a.m. It was an 11 a.m. screening that I saw this movie in. And I just remember thinking, okay, I need to watch this just so that I can say that I saw it. I was like, I just want to get out of the house. And it broke me. I hadn't cried, or I hadn't felt really any emotion, just kind of mostly a numbing feeling since the events of the 2016 election. My wife was very, very emotional, but I wasn't. And this movie broke me. I was sitting there going, why the fuck can't we be just a fraction of what happens at the end of this movie? Which is, I mean, essentially unity and solidarity in the face of not knowing everything and thinking we know everything and thinking that we are better than everything. And then also, I mean, ultimately, the decision at the end of this movie, what Amy Adams has to make, which is, would you save the world if you know that a lifetime of memories is about to occur and they're going to be the happiest memories that you're ever going to have, but you know that ultimately it's going to end in tragedy for yourself? Are you willing to face the ultimate fear, which is to lose a child, to divorce, to live alone? And the movie does this. I mean, I think you could say it's very, Jay's right. This is very Nolan. This movie doesn't run at all if Nolan doesn't have like Memento or Prestige or other films that really move the idea of sleight of hand. Because this movie is the ultimate sleight of hand movie, which is that you're presented with Louise's whole life and you think that all of these moments with her daughter have happened and that her daughter has already died. So she is this emotional shell of a person that is diving
as flashbacks.
Yes, that is diving into her work in order to find an answer to save humanity, to save herself. When in reality, she is as closer to finding her discovery, she finds an even more powerful discovery, and that's when she is emotionally her most vulnerable. And I think this movie asks a lot of questions about us as human beings, but it definitely asks us, the number one question is you have this knowledge. That's really what these aliens are trying to give her, the idea of having this knowledge and making a decision that is not easy. And I found that just to be so heartbreaking at the time, because the idea of losing a child in general is already terrifying enough for a parent, but the idea of losing everything and going back to essentially what you were before all of this happened, and knowing you're on a timeline and being the only one that really knows that, because she ultimately becomes the sort of alien whisperer for the way in which language and our grasp of this gift is supposed to be. And I just thought it was brilliant. I thought it was brilliant. And so then I rewatched it now, 7 years apart, and no, I think it's even more brilliant than it was then, because you take away the emotions of then, and even so, I think the causality of that election makes this movie even more important, because what we've learned
at this point, I watch it totally detached from.
No, I don't. Well, I don't think you can, because I think that our society has become even more and more. It's not even political. It's just social. We have become so detached of the idea of leaning on one another, and that you can blame politics. You can blame just our human nature. You can blame a lot of those things. But this movie is ultimately. This movie is ultimately trying to say that we have the potential to be better than this. And we have that potential to set aside petty bullshit differences to do the right goddamn thing. And I think that this movie has aged like a fine wine because of those ideas. And when we're left at the end of this movie, and these are hard decisions, these are heartbreaking decisions, but I think of that scene with, with when she's talking to the president of China, and it's not conveyed in like she knew something about his wife, so it humanized him. It wasn't like she knew some military code or she knew some.
It was a detail far more important than a code or
a weapon system or something political. It's
anecdote.
She's able to bring it in through humanity and bring it in through also the idea of this man's wife's dying words and what they were. And he completely then as a human being opens up. And Jay, you're absolutely right. This is a process movie too. The idea of her,
for that.
The science versus the language.
Michael Mann loved it.
I bet I as the man that made The Insider, I bet he
Zach,
ate it up.
Did you talk to Michael Mann about this movie?
I did, yeah. He liked it.
I was going to say he better have liked it.
Yeah, he liked it, and so did Tim Allen.
Yeah.
I'd say, like, you talk about like the election, and I didn't see it after the election. I saw it before the election. I'm checking my calendar to see what was going on around that time, and I definitely did go to see it a second time post Donald Trump being elected. So this was shot in 2015, obviously, and it had been in development for a long time. And actually, I remember I did a bunch of interviews for this movie, and one of them was with Sean Levy, one of the producers.
Yeah.
And he talked about how they hired Villeneuve to do this movie off of Incendies, long before like Prisoners or Sicario.
That actually makes sense.
Out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
same guy they didn't get him to direct it. Good fucking Lord, Sean Levy. It's that Sean Levy.
Well,
the Real Steel guy. Did he do the
Night at the Museum movies?
Did he do Free Guy?
He did do Free Guy. Yeah.
Free Guy.
He should be in federal prison.
The Adam. Well, he did Just Married, Big Fat Liar, Cheaper by the Dozen.
This is not a Sean Levy retrospective podcast.
Pink Panther.
Well,
all the Night at the Museum movies.
Yeah. Oh my God.
He's a
Date Night.
He's a director who I think thinks more like a producer.
Real Steel.
Than a director, which is why he did a good job producing this movie, right?
The Internship.
The Internship.
Yeah,
he didn't do he produced The Internship.
No,
sorry.
He directed The Internship. Yeah.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I was thinking of the Nancy Myers movie.
You're thinking of The Intern. That's close. They're roughly the same thing. The Intern is a lovely comedy, a romantic comedy about friendship. Between Robert De Niro and Anne Hathaway. The Internship is a Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson vehicle. Yeah.
This guy's directed so many movies. It's insane.
This Is Where I Leave You.
Yeah. He's prolific.
He's doing Deadpool 3.
But so I think
the guy who can get a meeting anytime he wants with anybody.
He did some Stranger Things stuff.
He had the intelligence to know that this was a good idea for a movie and that they should get somebody like Denis Villeneuve to direct it. Right, as opposed to him doing it himself. So
honestly, this is probably the highest rated thing he's ever done critically.
Probably.
Because it's either this or The Spectacular Now. He produced that.
He did,
yeah.
So anyway, the point I was making about it being in development for this long is that I think that there are movies that are trying to respond directly to the times that we live in, right? Very overtly, that aren't as successful as what I think this movie is probably doing, which is it's just like responding to a feeling that's out there, right? Like something that's in the ether. And I don't think that it was like made with the intention of being an allegory for what was going on with the election of Trump.
No, definitely not.
But I think that the general feeling in the air around the time that this movie was being made was one of we as people growing more and more distant from each other.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it is kind of like when you think back about it, it feels almost quaint to say like there was a time where prominent Republicans in Hollywood could go to an Oscar party and not talk about politics, right?
You know what? That's a great point. And that's all we joked about for the first 30 minutes of this podcast.
But it's honestly the truth. You think about it now, anyone's political ideology is put front and center, and if they don't talk about it, it is literally the speculation of, well, if they're not talking about those issues, then therefore they must be this. And it's like, no, how about people are allowed to be private about whatever the hell they want to be in, and don't have to publicize it. And
it's also about this idea that your political affiliations are the center of your identity.
No,
which really they shouldn't be.
No, because being just a decent human being should be that. Yeah, and yes, I mean it.
Which are not inherently tied to your political leaning.
No, I mean it kind of is when the president of the United States at that time, the new president of the United States that was elected was saying and doing pretty much anything and getting away with it, and did during his presidency, and so then that kind of blurs the line then of what is decent as a human.
So,
but
far apart on either side of the political spectrum that it does kind of read that way now. But that's a problem in and of itself, right?
Yeah. But this movie,
look, I know,
but this movie is pretty devoid of that kind of top government. The only one that really is
this is a movie about humanity.
Yeah, this movie that the only bureaucrat in it is Stuhlbarg, right?
Yeah,
and for the most part,
he's a little dweeb.
Yeah, but most part until the end of that film, he's along with the ride.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not it's not until the Chinese president starts threatening to nuke and get rid of the alien ships when our position sort of changes in it. And it's because that's and then of course when the idea of weapon is when that word is
one of my favorite elements of the film.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's genuinely fascinating enough, and she's absolutely right. She's like, we don't have enough information to know whether it meant tool or weapon or gift or whatever the hell it could be.
But we've gone to war over far less.
And that's the thing is we have, and this movie is within that. It's a little bit of like a. It's a dream because we hear the word weapon, it's on with our
military. Not even that. It's just that the default for anything that is useful in the context of this film means that humanity will use it as a weapon, which isn't untrue. I mean that's whether it's a military weapon or a political weapon or a cultural weapon or whatever it may be. That's kind of the impression that someone from another world has about anything that humanity utilizes, which is just a strong. You can maybe look at that from the outside and say, "Oh, what a trite idea," but it's a pretty profound idea, in my opinion, in its simplicity.
I mean, look at Oppenheimer. You know, the whole message of that movie, which is how science has been weaponized, quite literally. Yeah. Right.
Well, the idea of innovation being then corrupted. You know what I mean? And then this is the idea of in a lot of ways how language can then be twisted and turned, and then time is ultimately the real weapon. The understanding of that, the knowledge of that.
God, Christopher Nolan must have been so jealous of this movie when it came
out. But then he fucking made Oppenheimer, so I bet Denis Villeneuve's like, son of a bitch.
I have another story about this movie that I just remembered. When I was checking my calendar, I was like, what was this other time that I saw Arrival?
Get your blankets out, because it's story time, folks.
It was at a Q&A for this movie. It was Denis Villeneuve being interviewed by Christopher Nolan.
Of course.
So I know he was a fan.
Warner Brothers bros at the time, technically.
Yeah.
Even though this is Paramount. Well, this is Paramount, but like he was about to do, some films with them, or he had done films with them. Yeah.
He probably just liked the movie.
Did Prisoners, so that was
They're probably buddies.
I mean, it was one of those like. It was a total FYC event of trying to get him nominated, which worked obviously. I mean, it's definitely the kind of movie that he would admire, Christopher Nolan, not just because of
you're telling me it's sci-fi time bending shit with grief.
No, I just think he has very similar taste to Tim Allen
and the dead family member.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm signed up there. I
got a question I got to ask later, but no, I want to hear the story for sure.
Oh, that was the end of it.
That was the end. That was the end of it. Is that Nolan did the Q&A?
Yeah, it was kind of a nice little moment.
Did he talk? Did he talk about time? Did they talk about time a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. This was a long time ago, so I have a hard time remembering.
Well, Zach, if you're going to bring stuff up on this show, you better have it ready. God,
was Tim Allen at this as well?
I mean, as a matter of fact, he was sitting right next to me.
Yeah, they've been buddies ever since.
A screening of the pilot of Home Improvement. So here's my question I have, and this is just a complete nonsense question.
Okay.
Where would Arrival rank in Christopher Nolan's filmography?
Oh, well, below Oppenheimer, perhaps. And see, I'm a big fan of Interstellar, which I think has a lot of parallels.
You're not, Jay. So
I am not.
Takes you off the board.
Because I do think they are such almost one-to-one comparisons to me. These like master tacticians who have a certain, I don't know what do you
listen. I love this movie, but I would probably rank it like 4th or 5th on up against it. I would rank 4 or 5 Nolan films ahead of it.
I would rank it 1st or 2nd.
Oh, I don't think this is better. Putting all my cards on the table, I don't think Denis Villeneuve's better filmography. Like if we're gonna rank the filmographies, I think Nolan's filmography blows him out of the water.
I would agree
overall.
with you.
Nolan's definitely made many more good movies than Villeneuve has.
They've almost shockingly made the same amount of movies. Like
when you go back to Villeneuve's early stuff that nobody's ever seen, but as far as Hollywood movies, Villeneuve's made what, 5 or
6.
Not many.
Yeah,
it's interesting because I was talking to our fellow awards watcher Sophia Simonello about this. I think like Villeneuve's the thing with Villeneuve is that he's not big on like character development and things like that, right? And I think that's why this movie succeeds so much.
Yeah, that's why I think Dunkirk succeeds so much.
Yeah, like there's this emphasis on
Dunkirk's good. Sorry, I'm just thinking about Dunkirk for 5 seconds.
Yeah, pretty good 5 seconds.
I was thinking about the opening shots of Dunkirk.
Yeah, but yeah, the emphasis on the Louise character played by Amy Adams and her emotional journey, is what makes this movie more rewatchable for me, right? And I think there's a lot of that in Blade Runner as well, right? I think like
that movie is that for a Blade Runner sequel. That movie is. We'll talk about it next week, but it's really,
the movie's kind of a miracle.
Yeah, but that movie is extremely layered in its emotions.
But you look at something like Sicario, where it's like the whole point is the main character is devoid of character, is so suppressed at every corner, and that's kind of the point. But it does kind of detach you to a certain degree.
It hinders it a little bit.
Yeah. Now that movie is like well made, right?
Well, it's experiential. I think that
exactly
movie is so like a sensory overload to me that I love it so much.
There's also the like antithesis to this movie if you're talking about just messaging and what it say, because that movie's the cynical son of a bitch compared to this is a more bright ray of optimism by the end of when you're looking at humanity.
It ends with a child literally dying.
Yeah, but I mean but that's also
that's the magical balance of life. I mean, it is like that's such a cheesy thing to say, but it really is what it is.
I mean,
it kind of reminds me of my favorite film.
I was going to say
the Tree of Life.
I was going to say
like it was management of tragedy and appreciation of small moments. And I will say one moment that I love so much more now that I'm a parent is there are moments early in the film where Amy Adams is playing with her daughter.
Yeah.
And it seems so cheesy the way she's interacting with this other human. But when I look at it now as someone who is now interacting with another human being in those cheesy ways, I find it so endearing and true to life that I just appreciated it so much when she's I can't remember what they're like acting out a Western or something, and she's like, oh,
Right.
I've got my tickle guns or whatever. And that to me felt so true to life that it just like it gutted me, especially now that I know where the movie is going. It's really that small stuff. And as somebody, Ryan, you know that like Malick is my favorite filmmaker of all time. That small stuff can melt me in a moment. And knowing where this film was inevitably going, those moments melted me. And I think that's a sign of a really humanistic director who understands his characters.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot. I was thinking a lot of Malick, especially in the last 5 to 10 minutes of the movie. It's very, when the way it all comes together, it's done through score, and
where it's like the shot of a ceiling will make you cry.
Yeah, like the sunlight coming in, beaming on this child's face, and knowing that, you know, that this is the hope. Honestly, like, yes, there is the pain in knowing that she's going to have this incurable disease and she's going to pass. But what Villeneuve and you know, this movie is trying to say is that through whatever this gift is, this important gift that's going to be, and the understanding of all of that, through all this pain and this loneliness will come this ray of hope inside of you. And the experiences that you learn from here are exactly why we chose you to begin with. To know something like this and to go along this ride, it is technically human. I mean, you know, and I think it's incredible. And I think of a lot of what are essentially flash forward sequences that we think are flashback, but when the blending of it, right, when she's sort of discovering from her first encounters and everything, the look back when like her daughter is asking her about how a certain phrase should be or whatnot, and she can't remember, so she says, you know, ask your father or whatnot, and she had been previously married, so we just assume that it's a flashback.
Science guy,
and he's the science guy. But then, you know, I think that what makes me always cry is when she's in Renner's arms, and she says, I forgot what it was like, you know, for you to hold me.
Oh yeah, when they're in the past,
and you're like, God. Fuck. You know what I mean?
Or
like,
also
it's
when the other moment is when he says, let's make a baby, and
her face
moment of recognition where she's like, I know what the implications of that are.
Yeah.
And then she says something like, let's do it, or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, it seems kind of
so beautiful.
Yeah. It seems a little corny, but it also is perfect for what it is. And I like that we never see his reaction, because he is a man of logic. You know, he's a man of science, and you can just imagine through your scenes with him, you know, you can imagine that he's probably going to be pissed off, you know, but also logically it wouldn't make sense, or to hide a secret like that now, knowing that they've had this relationship is
a bit of an Oppenheimer.
Yeah. It is.
Well, he's
standing by a pond.
I did a double take when they mentioned that he was a theoretical physicist in Los Alamos. Did you catch that?
Yeah. I was like, holy shit! Jeremy Renner is Robert Oppenheimer?
Yeah. Christopher Nolan went to Denis Villeneuve from the future and said, read this book. Trust me.
Honestly, one of my favorite things about Oppenheimer is the way they say Los Alamos, like it's this like it's like a mansion on the hill sort of thing, you know. It's like, we were not ready for things at Los Alamos, you know. It's so, anytime I hear it, I anytime anyone says it now, I'm like, you mean Los Alamos? You have to say it like that with that Cillian Murphy accent on it. But yeah,
I have a question for the crew here.
Oh, for the two of us. Okay.
Yeah. Why doesn't this movie feel cheap?
You know what? That's fair.
It's
Because
such
it could
kind of a manipulative structure.
It could feel
but
like that, right?
So true to me. And I just want to know if y'all have opinions on why that is.
I think it's the
think it
sincerity.
is like, yeah. And for as much as I could, chide Villeneuve for some of his other films lacking in deeper character development, I think that it does, he's got good taste, right? And that comes through in
he knows
all of his movies, right?
Yeah.
Like his movies are better than they would be if directed by somebody else.
Yes.
And I think that that's like the mark of a smart filmmaker, right? So I think that's why it doesn't feel cheap, right? It would feel cheap if, say, I mean, not to knock the guy, but like if Sean Levy had directed,
I was just about to say, yeah, we just brought him up.
I mean, he's a very nice man, but he's got more of this kind of like populist sort of, kind of obvious inclinations in his filmmaking. So,
yes.
Yeah,
and the thing about him is, as Villeneuve, he's a great director. He elevates the material. He's got a great taste in collaborators. He didn't even have Deakins here, and we got to talk about the cinematography here. I'm sadly blanking on the
Bradford Young.
Bradford Young, of course, who did Solo, which is a movie that looks like garbage. But he did this first. This movie looks fantastic.
He also did Selma, remember?
Yes.
He did A Most Violent Year, which is
a good looking movie. Yeah,
Ain't Them Bodies Saints. I mean, it's not like
he's done some stuff.
The Pariah, which is a great film from D. Reese. He did Middle of Nowhere too with David Duvernay. And he also shot, I believe, When They See Us, the television show that she did for Netflix too. He hasn't done anything in a hot minute though, which is interesting.
Yeah, where's he been? We need him to come back.
Yeah, he's actually really good at his job.
Has soured him on the entire industry.
Well, that is his last film credit.
That is really crazy. I hate that for him.
I do too. Also,
I remember seeing this movie and I was like, "What a talent this guy is!" I mean, this movie. I think about little moments of this movie that wouldn't normally be in a movie like this, and it speaks to. These are the movies we want to see so badly, are these mid-budget adult oriented films. In the scene where gravity is like reoriented as they go up into the shell, and that's an expensive shot, and it's such an incredibly well executed shot, both from a cinematography standpoint and a design standpoint and a stunt standpoint. And that's that thing. That's that kind of alchemy of a little bit of budget, a ton of talent, and a lot of creativity going into it. And there are so many moments like that. I even think of just the bird you see inside of the shell at the top when they're talking to the heptapods, Abbott and Costello, and just that idea of this bird is making sure that the environment is still viable for a human being to be up there. It's like that there's still a human viable atmosphere up here. It's just that little stuff that makes it that much smarter than the average movie. And that stuff I love. I just love a smart science fiction movie. We get like one a year, maybe two. And this was the one of its year. And generally at this point, Villeneuve, I guess, is kind of making the one a year.
Pretty much, yeah. It's funny when you asked that question about whether or not this movie felt cheap. At first, I thought you meant budget-wise, because this was made for a tiny bit of money in comparison to what.
Yeah, but it's 50 million or something.
47.
They does a
that
very good
that 3
job.
million can go a long way. Okay.
Yeah, but like, point being that one of the things he does very well directorially is create a sense of scope and scale.
Correct.
Right. Even when working on a limited budget. And there's really not that many special effects shots when you think about it in this film, but the ones that are there are very smartly done. I remember one of the things he talked about when he was doing the press tour for Dune. He was being interviewed by James Cameron on one of those like director on director things that
Man.
I guess it was in Variety.
Oh.
And
Big Jim?
Big Jim, yeah. Big Jim was talking to Little D. And
he was deep.
Whoa,
deep
hey, we don't know that. That's
tiny D.
Tiny D.
Yeah. He talked about, in relation to Dune, this shot of the helicopter type things, those aircraft
the
carriers,
little firefly looking things,
right? And
dragonfly looking things.
Yeah, those are cool.
There's this shot where basically you've got three of them in the frame, right? And he racks focus in that shot to the one that's in the foreground. And that's a shot that you see in dozens of movies with actual helicopters, right? And he took it directly from Black Hawk Down. He said that it was an homage to something that Ridley Scott did. And what that does, and there's a lot of that in this film, where he does a lot of like practical camera work in those scenes where the spaceship is present. There's never anything that is the thing that drives me crazy in this age of CGI, where you see like, oh, look at the camera moving all around like this, and it's all in one take and blah, but like nothing in the frame is real. And you know that it's not real because the camera's doing something that it could not do in an actual environment.
And it's all crystal clear and
yeah. And like Villeneuve never does anything like that. And that's why it sells the reality of these spaceships are really here. These heptapods are really here, right?
Yeah.
And he shows you how
the illusion of tactility.
Exactly. He shows you how they look in relation to the humans when they're talking to them. And it's like it's those little things that ground this movie in a reality that makes it all the more effective.
Completely unrelated. One of the best examples of that, in The Lion King, very early on, there's like a rack focus. I can't remember if it's from is it from an elephant to like the beetle that has like a leaf on its back?
Yeah.
That feels like it's actually shot by a person on site. I love when they do stuff like that. I love when they do that. And Villeneuve does it. I mean, he's a smart cookie. He's a smart cookie. Yeah. And he gets talented people around him.
Yeah, no,
Is this the best Amy Adams performance?
You know what? We hadn't talked about her.
We have to, because we don't get to talk about her again in this series.
And we're not going to talk about her in any other prominent directors because she's not working with anyone.
Talk about her again.
Nope. I don't think so.
I gotta, this might be her best performance. I gotta look her up real quick because I'm trying to think of what might be.
That's not that. Well, I mean, we might talk about her again in a couple months.
Yeah, we might. We'll see. But so just a little background on my relationship with Amy Adams. She was, around the time this movie came out, far and away my favorite actress. I was just like, she is the one. She is the best performer working right now. We went on our honeymoon in 2017, and we did like the couples, like the newlywed game of who is your celebrity crush. My wife, without even thinking, went Amy Adams. Yeah. And it was, of course, entirely correct. We won the newlywed game. We won some cheap rum, which was a huge win for us. But she was just like, she was my person during this time. I was just like, she's the most talented individual working right now, in my opinion. I don't know what has happened since then. I bought all the stock and I lost a lot of money, but she absolutely will do our Oscar game later. How she was not nominated for an Oscar for this film is confounding.
Well, I remember this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just think she's remarkable in this movie. Her ability to sell transcending the dimension of time is incredible. And when you watch it for a second, third, fourth, fifth time, and you just kind of realize that Villeneuve told her, I need you to understand, you're not having a memory here. You're seeing a memory that you don't even have yet. And when you view it in that context, you're just like, how does she imbue that as effectively as she does, and also convince you in the moment that maybe it's something else? Because whether you know it or you don't know it, it plays either way. And she comes off as so intelligent, possessing such integrity in this movie. I think it's an incredible performance, and I would say probably her best, but I also think she's like a freaking superstar. So I don't know.
I think it is her best. Yeah.
I agree. Go, Zach.
I was just gonna say, I remember this Oscar year very well, and it was a shock. And I think what happened, because she was always like, she hit everywhere. She was at the Golden Globes, she was at SAG, BAFTA, so it was genuinely a shock. And it was one of those things where there were essentially 7 people vying for those 5 slots, the other being Annette Bening for 20th Century Women, who I was personally devastated was not nominated. It was always just, it was really just, God love her, but Meryl Streep and Florence Foster Jenkins, it was just one of those things where it was
my God, I resent that movie so much.
I don't think she was too happy about being nominated that year either. That's all from what I've heard from people who might have talked to her around that time. But
interesting.
Yeah. It was just one of those things.
Meryl didn't want to be nominated for the 50th time?
So I've heard a story from a friend of mine who once had dinner at her home in New York. I guess he was like friends with her daughter or something. And
ooh, the Gummers.
Yeah, and apparently she was just like, oh, the Oscars again. God, when will they ever stop nominating me?
What a hassle it is to be nominated.
Oh, what a hassle it is to be one of the greatest actors of all time. Well, then don't make movies.
What a burden it is to be nominated for an abjectly bad performance.
Don't really submit then. That's such a stupid thing to say.
Well, I don't think she has a choice. Does she? I mean,
no, that's in her contract for sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Out of her hands. Yeah, I'm sure when she makes a movie like that, they're like, and you have to show up to the Oscars, and she goes, shit.
It was more like, I think by this, because I remember when she won for the Iron Lady, she was like, okay, I know that this is never going to happen again. And I think there was this thing of like, I've had enough. Okay, I don't need any more. I appreciate it, but like nominate somebody else for a change, right? Like that kind of thing of, am I really worth, like every single year you feel like you have to nominate me? And, like with Amy Adams, I will say, like with Amy Adams' last few films, it does seem like she's making bad choices. But when you think about it, like you can understand the reason behind doing Vice.
Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah, Hillbilly Elegy, like
The Woman in the Window.
I think actresses go through eras where they are given the best projects in the world, and they are doing movies with interesting directors, and they're taking swings, and I think she definitely does that throughout her career. I think at a certain point, certain actresses then want to chase the Oscar, right? And that happens. And I think after a certain amount of time, they stop doing that.
Her next movie, I'm very excited for.
I am very excited for Night Bitch. That is a movie that, if anyone can get Amy Adams back on track, it's Mariel Heller.
Were y'all on the same track of like Amy Adams is the one? She's absolutely going to win an Oscar.
I wasn't even that. I was just like, she's the one.
She's the one
actresses that can carry us over to the next, 20, 30 years.
I mean,
she
I'm
can
looking
take
back
the
on it
mantle
now.
from like Frances and from Meryl and
Yeah, exactly.
even
It was like,
Blanchett,
she's gonna
Kate
be
Winslet.
here
You know,
for
she
the
can.
next
Yeah,
20 years.
yeah.
The
She's
Fighter,
gonna.
she's so good in The Fighter.
She's so good in The Fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know it's not like everybody doesn't love that film or whatever. I think she's actually really good in American Hustle.
I think she's great in American Hustle. She's also very attractive in American Hustle.
That's goes without saying.
I mean, she's great in Her.
Yeah, she should have been nominated for Her.
She's good in Big Eyes, a movie I don't really like, but she's good.
I don't like that movie.
She's good in where you at on Nocturnal Animals?
You ask this all the time. I think you asked this a couple weeks ago.
Everybody's at on Nocturnal. I like it.
Again,
it's good.
I'm not the biggest Nocturnal Animals fan. I am firmly of A Single Man is a masterpiece.
It's such an obnoxious movie.
I just remember when Aaron Taylor Johnson won the Golden Globe, and the first thought that came into my mind was they mispronounced Mahershala Ali's name so badly.
Well, look who won that all the way through. Even you know who's really good in that movie? Michael Shannon.
Yeah,
Michael Shannon is amazing in that movie.
Michael Shannon's great in everything, though. I think and Eric's not here, but I do think the problem with that movie is maybe Jake Gyllenhaal.
We're gonna have to bleep that out along with like 90% of the jokes that were told on this.
No, we're keeping everything.
She was, she was.
She got snuck in the. She got snuck. She got stuck in the Snyderverse.
She got stuck in that, like
and doing Oscar fare.
I mean, Hillbilly Elegy
that sounded good atrocious on paper, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's like, okay, Hillbilly Elegy, that's based on a bestseller. It's directed by Ron Howard, who's had some success in making movies.
It's woman in the window role.
Woman in the Window is Joe Wright, which that could be a coin flip.
The Woman in the Window was supposed to be her kind of Gone Girl.
Yeah,
which they've been trying to imitate Gone Girl since Gone Girl.
I mean,
and they have failed at every.
Jay, why is that? Because they don't have David Fincher directing the goddamn like David that and the girl on the train.
David Fincher could use Amy Adams so well. David Fincher would crush with Amy Adams.
Don't say things that I love because that sounds amazing. I don't know what movie that is, but I'm there for it. I
don't know.
Honestly, that would be a really good choice. No, but I mean. She's got Night Bitch. Has she got anything else coming after that?
I'm looking at what she's got in development. She's got an Adam McKay movie. She's reuniting with him for that.
And is it that?
Thank God.
Oh, okay. I mean, that is a man that gets pretty much a blank check at this point.
Freaking Oscar nomination.
I mean, yeah, you know,
he's not good in that movie, but sure, you know.
But again, I mean, it's like,
she's trying to chase something. Then that's. Though he's leaning more ensembles nowadays than he is individual performances, so it's.
I don't know what I'm looking at this. She also has a movie from the directors of Little Miss Sunshine that's in development, so I don't know what's going to come.
Interesting.
But the one thing she did do in kind of her nadir was Sharp Objects, which is unbelievable in.
Yeah.
Which I gotta say, I R.I.P. to Jean-Marc Vallée. I really thought that was somebody I also put stock in. I thought that he was on the precipice of maybe delivering some film down the road that could be like spectacular.
I had totally forgotten that he died.
Yeah, he had passed away a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I remember it now that you said it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this Adam McKay movie, and
yeah,
that's always.
Yeah.
Oh God, I think I've read this plot before. Read it again, Zach.
It's called Average Height, Average Build. A serial murderer hires a lobbyist to change the law so that he can commit murder more easily.
Oh my!
The murderer attempts to stop a retired police officer from following his trail because he won't give up on the killings. It's starring Amy Adams, Robert Downey Jr., Robert Pattinson, Forrest Whitaker, and Daniel Deadwyler. They're so far.
I mean, if you told me in any other context that was the cast of a movie, I'd be like, this sounds incredible. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it is an Adam McKay movie, and I know that will have all the nuance of a sledgehammer
Adam
to
McKay
the skull.
Do you guys have anything else to say about Arrival, the film?
I mean, I think it's a really good movie, and it's the kind of thing I wish that Villeneuve would do more of. I wish that he would tap into that side of himself a bit more. That was one thing that I would say was probably lacking in Dune, even though I think that movie has got like some incredible filmmaking in it. We'll see what part 2 is like when it comes. Like perhaps there will be more of that in it this time, but I think that with Arrival, it shows that he's capable of doing something that is still is more emotional and still like, incredible to see on a big screen, right? Like doesn't sacrifice the emotional heft for the sort of like spectacle of it. So.
Yeah. Jay, do you think this is the one of the best films of the decade, the last decade?
Yeah, I would say it's in my top 20.
Yeah.
I really think it is, and on this rewatch particularly, I was just like, this thing is so much cleverer than I think I gave it credit for, and a lot of people give it credit for. I think it's so emotionally impactful, and I just want to give one shout out to this movie. Made money. This was a low-key hit. This thing made $200 million.
It's a 5-time multiplier.
Yeah,
almost.
And this is so much the archetype of they don't make them like they used to. This is the kind of movie. I don't need it to be $150 million. Just let it be $50 million, and let it have kind of weighty ideas and some emotional heft, and be a little challenging. If we got 5 Arrivals a year, we'd be eating good. Or 5 movies that tried to be an Arrival a year, we'd be in a great place cinematically, artistically.
Yeah.
I think this is really something to strive for. Villeneuve is kind of that guy, one of those guys. He's in that Nolan sphere, although his films aren't at this point. I guess Christopher Nolan is just like an ATM spitting out money. Anything he makes will just make $700 billion.
True, but there's also a lot within those films too. It's you're eating well if you're going to a Nolan film.
Well, no, they're wonderful, and I think Villeneuve should be kind of on that same trajectory. And I mean, he's doing IP stuff right now, so
so did Nolan.
He did, and then this is the kind of movie that feels like it's like, okay, you kind of level up with your Dark Knights or whatever, and then you go do whatever you want. He did this kind of before he went the IP route, and this is the one. Is this the only movie where the studio was like, wow, great work. We're so pleased with how this movie performed.
Made us cash. Yeah, because the next two,
the only one.
Yeah, because the next two,
Prisoners, I guess, did okay.
Look at Sicario. You'd have to go look back at Sicario and see what it did.
I really do think you have to put an asterisk next to Dune because
there's no way to judge Dune. We don't know.
Yeah,
we've talked about it.
We don't know.
I fought you guys on it.
The only way to judge Dune is Dune 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I fought you guys on it, but now the more I think about it, I mean, like Sicario was 30 budget, 85 million, so it's 2.5-ish.
Yeah,
it's not bad, but it's not this. That getting that 200, that helps. But yeah, then Blade Runner and obviously Dune had an enormous circumstance and a day-and-day release and a bunch of stuff that's completely out of its hands. But this is the true hit of his filmography, which is really interesting, I think, because
we really kind of underrate how disastrous Blade Runner was.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it next week, and it's going to be an interesting
So
I mean, that's the thing. I mean,
that is why he got Dune, is because they were like, yeah, but it rocks.
Yeah,
you lost us a lot of money, but
well, I mean, it's the
rocks.
Well,
and
it's
you're
also
great in a room.
I mean, isn't it like also the Mad Max Fury Road of it all?
On
like
budget, on time.
Like Mad Max Fury Road didn't make its money back either, and yet they've greenlit a sequel because that movie rocks and it's one of the great films of the decade. And
Mad Max
and it made a bunch of
and
it got a lot
of money back post theatrical.
Yeah, I mean, but at the time, and it also was a hell of a shoot. We don't really know extensive. I mean, we know about Kyle Buchanan's book, but that whole thing was an ordeal to go through. And then they were like, let's make a prequel to it. And you're like, you sure? And so it's the old Hollywood adage of if you can get it.
It didn't do great. It did okay.
It did fine. It didn't do like
it made almost. I mean, it made $380. That's a lot of money, although it just cost a lot of money to make.
It cost a lot.
I have to tell the story about the first time I saw Blade Runner 2049. I just remembered it was at a screening room in Burbank. It was like some kind of Warner Brothers screening room, and I was sitting next to Pete Hammond. And
oh boy!
I remember after the movie was done, Pete and I were walking out of the theater, and he says, "Well, that was amazing. I couldn't tell you what it was about, but it sure was good."
But that is kind of the Villeneuve thing, right? Where it's
it's vibes.
You let it wash over you, and you're kind of left in a state of astonishment just by the audio visual majesty of what you just witnessed, and then you kind of break it down.
Jay, I have a question for you.
And then sometimes you break it down and it's amazing, and then sometimes it's Sicario and you're like, I don't know, there's a lot of there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jay, I got a question for you. You think that Nolan watched this and watched Blade Runner 2049, and that's where the birth of Tenet comes from? A movie completely aesthetically about vibes and how you will feel emotionally rather than logic?
I mean, Christopher Nolan has been trying to make Michael Mann movies for his entire career.
So he made his Black Hat.
He made his Miami Vice.
Oh, all right.
Would you guys, if you guys ever do?
We're doing Man. We're doing Man.
I'm calling my shot right now. Miami Vice. I will come on here and talk about Miami Vice.
Man.
As long as nobody's arguing on that show, then
that is my movie.
I will talk about Miami Vice for almost as long as I'm sure Sophia will talk about Phantom Thread.
That's
whenever.
Yeah, and whenever
if
we
that
do
ever happens,
if we ever do a PTA series,
if you ever do that, now you may have to cut that out.
It'll never happen. I
don't know. We're never going to do a PTA series. What are we?
That'd be
nonsense.
Ridiculous.
That would be ridiculous. I mean, would we plan that out? Come on.
No.
Yeah.
He just doesn't. The problem with PTA is he doesn't have enough good movies.
Yeah, we talk about Phantom Thread, but then we got to fill in the other 8 weeks.
We got to talk about what? There Will Be Blood.
We got to talk what? Boogie Nights. Give me a fucking.
Who would want to talk about that movie?
What a terrible podcast that would be. Yeah. No, I think this is a great movie, and what we didn't talk about, I know we talked about it a little bit, but Jóhann Jóhannsson's score in this movie is
amazing.
Absolutely fucking bonkers.
Especially in that final sequence where she does start transcending time, and the Zima shout out, he's amazing in this movie.
I mean, it essentially becomes his film at that point, and it's incredible. Mm-hmm. I think the idea of calling him Abbott and Costello, I think that's really funny. This movie's got a good sense of humor. It's got a good sense of tone throughout it. Again, once you're talking about,
he's a master.
This movie could get very melancholy and could get very dour if it wanted to, and it doesn't. It's, again, very hopeful.
And it's got jokes.
It's got jokes.
5. Which for Villeneuve is like a record.
This is a stand-up special at this point.
Unfathomable. Yeah.
I think another performance we haven't talked about nearly enough, Renner. I think he's incredible in this movie. Mm-hmm. Renner gets kind of put into this Marvel box. He's one of those, but truly, I think when
Renner
he wants to be
great stuff.
Renner has a great, he is a very good actor when he's not just playing Hawkeye.
He was fantastic in American Hustle.
Oh yeah, he's very good in that.
It might be the best performance in American Hustle.
I mean, Hurt Locker, obviously, he's incredible in that film. The Town. Oh my God, I remember watching The Town and just being like, "Well, Jeremy Renner is the star." And then they put him in every action vehicle, and none of them panned out because they wanted him to take over Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise said, "No, thank you." They wanted they tried to do Bourne, an audience were like, "Where's Matt Damon? Hawkeye is not Thor or Iron Man." So and so now he's, obviously he's had his accident and everything, and hopefully maybe he can rise up and do some, do something in the second half of his career here. But I think he's
now
really,
he's like an honest to God hero.
Yeah, he's, incredible. I mean, one minute he's selling like stuff on an app, and the next minute he's a truly.
He went from a laughing stock to like you saved a kid's life.
Yeah, his nephew, I believe, right? And
something like that.
And then, but I think he's incredible opposite Amy Adams in this movie. I think they have unbelievable chemistry. Forrest Whitaker, just great, just great presence in this movie. Forrest
Great
Whitaker,
voice.
great voice,
raspy as ever.
That's that scene where he goes into her office early on and she sort of tests him. It almost is like foreshadowing how she will be tested later down the road too, and sort of how cocky Louise is as well. One of the best guys in the business, in my opinion, one of the great character actors, Stuhlbarg. I think anytime a movie has Michael Stuhlbarg in it, it's elevated to like the next level. He's like Tucci.
That is a role that could be absolutely
thankless,
almost like, truly almost fatal to the movie, and he does just enough to get it across the finish line.
It's because he's Michael fucking Stuhlbarg. He's incredible in everything he does.
That's sort of the thing he does too, because you think of like his role in Call Me by Your Name, the speech at the end of that movie that he has, like that could very easily derail a movie.
I think of like him last year in Bones and All. Yeah.
He's going ham bone in that one though.
He's
like a steady hand.
Yeah.
In that one, he's like, I'm going to be the most 1,000 level over the top character in this movie, and then Rylance is like, "Oh yeah, I got you.
Chalet's here.
Hold my beer."
No, I mean, I've fell in love with Stuhlbarg in A Serious Man and Santana Abraxas, but yeah, I mean, he's now just kind of the one scene steel wonder. He's incredible, and
he's made so much money off of Marvel for doing absolutely nothing, and I respect that.
Really?
Yeah.
What was he in Marvel?
He's in Doctor Strange.
Oh, that's right. He's like he comes and shows up in like 2 scenes in those movies. He makes a ton of money. He's probably like, I need a home renovation project. Let me just go cameo in this thing. Yeah, that's right.
He barely has to be in any of the other ones.
Yeah, that's actually really smart on his part. But
legend.
But yeah, I think Joe Walker's editing in this movie is incredible. I think Bradford Young, probably the best work of his career outside of A Most Violent Year, a movie I absolutely
best
adore.
Work of his career.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that in maybe A Most Violent Year.
Yeah, I mean it's right up there. It's a great looking movie.
So,
Bradford Young, come back.
Please come back, Bradford Young. Yeah. Miss you. Great. You're great at your job, dude.
Everybody's starting to come back from the solo stank. Alden's back. Let's get Bradford Young back.
Amelia's back, right?
Amelia's back in something that apparently was also terrible.
Glover's always around.
Donald Glover's, he's been doing his thing. Did I hear that they're doing a Lando TV show?
You did hear that, and I sort of memory hold it. And you brought it right back into my mind again.
That is, no, thank you, is what I say to that.
God, they're just really. I hate to sound like that kind of a bro, but they're really just killing Star Wars.
They're killing Star Wars.
It's just, I love Star Wars. I love Star Wars.
I haven't watched Andor. Is Andor worth watching?
Andor's good.
I've heard Andor's great, but it's also a freaking prequel. And
I have no fealty. I'm not like as big of a Star Wars fan as
I love Star Wars.
I guess you guys. I like. Grew up on the original trilogy, obviously.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. I'm like, Star Wars. If it's good, then Star Wars is good.
I mean, I don't like
Andor's good.
Garbage out there.
Yeah, I mean, I just love those movies. I mean, that original trilogy was so good, and even the shitty prequels. I mean, like they're part of my childhood of going to see those in the theater when you're a kid, and then I liked 7 and 8, and then at the time I had nostalgia blinders on for 9 when I first saw it, and then the complete reversal of a year later watching it at home by myself, going, "Oh my god, this movie sucks." Because
Phantom Menace was the first movie I didn't like in a movie theater. I was 8 years old.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I just told my dad as we were walking out, I said, I didn't like that movie.
And he's like, "Well, let's go watch it again, son."
Yeah.
So, well, Jay, before we get out of here, we're going to test your award season knowledge based on the film we just reviewed, which was Arrival, in a segment that we like to call "It's an Honor to Get Nominated."
Yes.
Jay, movie was a big hit, like you said.
200.
Some would say a big success for Villeneuve overall as a award season player.
Mm-hmm.
Was this nominated for Oscars?
Okay. So I was mildly invested in this as an Oscar movie. We kind of brought up a few things here. Amy Adams not nominated,
which
is a true travesty.
I'm just going to say bullshit. So,
I know this was nominated for Best Pick. It was kind of now that we're in the 10, you get sort of your novelty sci-fi.
You get your big budget action film once a year, even though it's not like a giant budget, but like it's the
famous action
genre
film Arrival.
The genre film. You get the genre film in there.
Yes. Yeah. Did Zach say that Villeneuve got nominated for director?
I don't know. Did Zach say that? And don't answer that, Zach.
I thought that's what he. I thought that's what he
go
said.
With it.
But
go with it.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. Yes, you're correct.
God, he got nominated for director for this? That's impressive.
Yeah.
I think this got nominated for cinematography.
Yep.
Score?
No
score?
It was deemed ineligible. Jay.
Yeah.
For what reason?
I guess the Max Richter stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's a stupid.
It's a stupid rule. It's how like Mad Max doesn't get nominated for or There Will Be Blood, and stuff like that.
Wait, Mad Max didn't get nominated, was ineligible for score?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The frickin' artist won Best Score, and it has the climax of the movie is entirely scored to music from Vertigo that Bernard Herrmann composed. Like the entire, like it's just lifted.
You just make up rules for shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
10 whole minutes out of the score from Vertigo.
Yeah.
Like I understand the Tree of Life not being eligible for score because it's using old music, and maybe it's just my ignorance to.
It's like a percentage thing now. I think they've lowered the standard, so most of these scores would be eligible now.
That's insane.
That they weren't then, right, Zach? I believe that they changed that recently, right?
Yeah, they did, and it's I don't know.
It's stupid.
Yeah,
I think did this get special effects?
Nope.
Damn.
But you're on the right track.
Let's get some sound.
They got both sounds.
Both sounds.
Remember, you still had we're now in an era currently.
Well, it's just one,
but back then they
had. Where do y'all stand on that? Is that cool?
We should have two sound categories.
I'll say that
it's not my damn fault they don't know how to figure out which one is which and what it does.
And that's
okay, Ryan. Tell me right now, right now. Tell me the difference between the two.
I don't know anymore because I don't live in a world where I have to think about it anymore.
Well, I can tell you because.
Okay, Zach, do it because it's like it was always. I always had the argument, and now I've just like time. It's just floated and floated away.
I'm not either a professional sound editor or mixer. So if anyone listening to this is and disagrees with my assessment of it, don't come at me. Just, sound editing is piecing together the various recordings to get a clean track.
Yep.
Right. Sound mixing.
Like editing a podcast.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sound mixing is the different levels that you give to each track. So you have like
editing a podcast.
Exactly. So you have like in any given scene of a movie, you have dialogue, you have music, you have sound effects, and
it's all encompassing everything.
Exactly.
And making it balance.
Yeah. Now,
so it's like Christopher Nolan, why was that music so damn loud?
Yeah.
Well, because it was in the mix.
Yeah. I have no hearing problem. Fix your own fucking ears.
Just turn the subtitles on.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, I'll say, Ryan, the reason I don't have a problem with them doing it as one is precisely because no one can tell the difference. Now, if the people voting for it did, I would say have two separate categories, right?
Mm.
I mean,
as long as they're all getting, both departments are getting the Oscars,
exactly,
which has been the case. Then
but for so long they would just be like, well, the musicals are the best sound mixed, right?
Yeah, and it's like, that's fucking lazy.
The action movies are the best sound edited, and it's like you don't understand the difference between.
I think what drives me nuts now is like when people, I don't know, maybe it's consciously or unconsciously, it's like if you got best sound, that means you got best film editing. Lock it up, throw away the key.
Yeah, and
it's like 9 times out of 10 that's usually the case. It didn't happen last year, but you know, it's infuriating. It does. I mean, it makes sense, but it's
grind the ceremony to a bit of a halt.
It does, but it's also like those people worked very hard just as much as anybody else on their damn craft. Like, give them their.
Well, that's fine. Let me throw this out here. Get the shorts out of here. Get them out.
See, that?
Well, not this year because Wes Anderson has one. So,
yeah, he could potentially win an Oscar this year, Jay. They're not going to do that, but I think in any given year, I mean, the Governor Awards and the shorts should be on a separate telecast. Mm-hmm. That's like a week or two before the Oscars to get people invested in it, or at least simulcast them on YouTube or something. So, and make them an event because people want to see them. But yes, I agree with Jay. Like, if you wanted to put the shorts on a different night, and I know people are going to get
we
mad.
Should put we should see David Lynch getting his Oscar on TV.
Yeah.
And not, I don't know, what one animated short? That one about the birds on the beach?
That could be literally any animated short from the last.
I think you just named the last 10 winners.
There's the one about the birds on the beach. There's the one about the birds on the power line. There's the one about.
There's the birds and the bees. Yeah, it's.
There's the one where like a sweater comes to life in a Lost and Found.
Jay, you need to finish answering the question to this game.
Yes. Okay. All right. So there are some outstanding that I have not called out yet.
Yes. Well, first of all, you never gave me a number of what you thought, so you're just playing off of what. Well,
I have to go one by one and kind of go through them.
I mean, I guess so, but that's just longer for the listeners.
Well, then maybe I should go one by one through them at the beginning, and then we.
That's fair. That's fair.
What's left?
Well, you have 5.
Design?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that the last one?
No.
They got another one?
I'll just give you a number. You got 2 more.
2 more?
It was nominated for 8 Oscars.
My Lord. That's one of them Oscars.
One of them I mentioned.
Screenplay.
That's correct. Adapted screenplay. And I talked about his work in my final thoughts. Joe Walker.
Damn. I should start listening to you. God
damn. Joe Walker, who, what did he do, Jay?
He edited.
There you go. So the movie got 8.
It is a supremely well edited movie.
It is incredibly edited.
Probably.
Like it kind of
right?
Damn, 8 Oscars for this movie. That's a haul.
It's kind of one of those movies where you're like, if the editing doesn't work, the movie is ruined, right? It's more than on the page. It's definitely in the editor.
Is structured, yes, and you appreciate the editing more again as you watch it.
So I mean, obviously, Moonlight won Best Picture. Chazelle won Director. Screenplay went to Barry Jenkins. I mean, Arrival only won Best Sound Editing. It did not win Sound Mixing. Sound Mixing went to. Oh shoot! Sound Mixing went to Hacksaw Ridge.
Hell yeah!
That was the year. Then also Best Film Editing
for a Gibson series.
But no, Best Film Editing went to Hacksaw Ridge. That was the year that Mel Gibson got nominated for Best Director.
You know, of all the problematic men that I mentioned who were at this Oscar party, one of them surprisingly was not Mel Gibson, even though this was the year that
You just had dinner at his house the next week. But Linus Sandgren won cinematography for La La Land over this. I would have given it to James Laxton for Moonlight or Rodrigo Prieto for Silence.
It is. It's tough. It's tough. Moonlight is a good film.
Just good?
It is a fantastic film.
Just fantastic? I could keep going with this and just, it's the best movie of the last decade.
Those movies, this movie and that movie for me are like neck and neck, to be honest.
Yeah, no, they are my favorite 2 movies of the year, of this year. Arrival and then Moonlight being one. This is the best actress category. Let's talk about it real quick. Emma Stone won for La La Land.
I think she's great in that movie.
I think she's very good. Isabelle Huppert for Elle.
Would have been my vote.
What an incredible performance.
Kind of crazy that she was nominated in the first place, but cool. Good by them.
Ruth Negga for Loving.
Movie I'm not super crazy about, but she's great.
She's incredible in that movie. Natalie Portman for Jackie. Another wonderful.
I love that. I mean, these are 4 good ones so far. Yeah.
And then, of course, Meryl Streep for Florence Foster Jenkins.
Oh my God! Throw it in a dumpster.
Now,
like
I mean,
Meryl Streep playing Mrs. Doubtfire in the movie. This is my
to be. I would say also there is the whole Viola Davis wins an Oscar for Fences. Is she a lead in that movie? You can make that argument if you want.
She is a lead.
She is a lead.
She should have been in lead, and I think she would have won in lead. Actually,
I think she would. Well,
and Naomi Harris would have won supporting actress.
Yeah,
deservedly. I would say.
Not Michelle Williams.
I don't know. I mean, possibly.
There was that whole thing all year of like Williams is going to win out of Sundance, and because she's got that scene, my heart is breaking, and everything, and then I think
I just remember going to
events. Yeah.
I just remember going to events and people being like, "I'm so upset that Viola Davis isn't supporting because I really want to vote for Naomi Harris."
And it's like, well, you can. There's no law against it.
Yeah, like go ahead. And
there's no law.
I remember when they passed that law.
And like, this is nothing against Viola, by the way. Like that's my.
But no, I would have
breaking the law.
I would have put Amy Adams in here and kindly kicked out Mariel that year. It's the easiest one.
She would have liked it. She didn't even want to be there.
She didn't want to be. She doesn't like going to those things. She would rather just work.
How many has she won?
3.
3, yeah.
Well, the reason why Viola Davis technically wins this Oscar is because she got beat by Meryl for The Iron Lady when Meryl won for The Iron Lady and Viola Davis lost for The Help.
Okay, hold on. So that's one. Let me see if I can remember the other 2 that she won for.
Interesting. They're kind of big titles and they're early in her career.
Kramer versus Kramer.
Yep. She won supporting actress for that, which is kind of insane. But
what was the other one?
The other, I'll give you that. The other is a lead performance.
The other is a lead.
Big,
it wasn't Bridges, was it?
No,
should have been.
It should have been. It should have been, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Is it?
Think
80s?
Earlier than that.
What? Deer Hunter?
No,
she wasn't the lead in Deer Hunter.
No, she's not the lead in Deer Hunter.
This is a very serious movie, like one of those movies where people are like,
"Yeah, you really got to think."
Fucking Sophie's Choice.
Yes. Yeah, and so you really got to like think about. It's like you only get 2 choices here. It's a real Sophie's Choice.
Talk about a movie that I would never want to watch as a parent. Like,
talk about like a movie that's like the phrase Sophie's Choice has aged so much, but I bet you 95% of the people that say it have never seen it.
But everybody says it's a real Sophie's Choice.
Yeah, and they're like, you don't know what that means because you've actually never seen the damn movie. You're just saying that.
But
I want to watch Bridges of Madison County now.
Yeah,
that's her best. That's her best performance.
Ryan, we could do a Clint.
You could do eras of Clint. Like you could break it down. Like you do 1 year, you do the 8 Clints. That's hard because he's got so many fascinating choices.
40.
I'll come on for the mule. Or
hell yeah.
Now we're talking.
What's that train movie that he did?
1517 to Paris.
There you go.
Yeah.
He did Jersey Boys. Think about that. The world-renowned Frankie Valli Broadway smash. His dark aesthetic was attached to the film of that.
Yeah, this looks good.
Yeah,
Big
move
girls
along.
don't cry.
Yeah, big girls don't cry.
The Mule, a good movie.
Good movie.
Just
That is, it's, you know what? It's a movie. It exists. He wrote it. No,
See, what Ryan is describing is kind of how I feel about Cry Macho, but the Mule is legit good.
The Mule is actually, honestly, upon it's
Cry Macho. I'm kind of like, this is interesting enough to recommend.
I have a soft spot for Cry Macho. I could do a whole 15 minutes on Cry Macho in this podcast where I've already talked for like
Jay, would you
minutes.
Yeah,
Ryan, we got to do Friedkin. What we got to do Friedkin?
We're talking about all these. We're supposed to be talking about fucking Denis Villeneuve, and we're talking about more of these other shit.
We got to do Friedkin. Zach, is there a Friedkin you'd want to do?
Oh God! I mean, is there? Sorcerer. I'll come on for.
Yeah, I know he would come on for. French Connection.
Yeah, I would freaking. Are you kidding me? Of course, I'd come on for the French Connection. Like any of
them. Would you two give Arrival Best Picture?
Oh boy,
over Moonlight. I'm not.
I gotta look it up.
No,
man.
I would have to say no.
Jay, do you want to know the films that are nominated?
No, I'm just gonna look at my 2016 in general.
Well, I mean, yeah, but
it would be between Moonlight of the nominees. I know it would be.
It's Moonlight, Arrival, Fences, Hacksaw Ridge, Hell or High Water, Hidden Figures, La La Land, Lion, Manchester by the Sea.
Probably Lion.
I can hear Eric.
Actually, I'll be honest. My favorite of those is probably Manchester by the Sea.
That's a good movie.
That's a movie I've only seen once.
I can just hear that.
No, but I would give it to Moonlight. Not even. I would give Moonlight director.
I would too.
It's like I love Villeneuve, and Chazelle's best work comes the next film for him. So, yeah.
Manchester by the Sea, original or adapted?
Original.
All right, I'm giving. Was Moonlight was adapted?
Adapted, yeah.
Technically, and by the Academy standards.
By the Academy standards, yeah.
Exactly.
So
it was based on a play.
I'm going Manchester picture, Jenkins director.
You're going to give La La Land original screenplay?
No, I'm giving Manchester original.
Okay, and Jenkins director, and then
I'm probably giving Jenkins screenplays as well.
Oh, okay, all right. So
I'm giving Amy Adams actress.
You would throw her in there, kick out Meryl.
Hair is so good.
Yeah, that's who we should do is Verhoeven.
All right. Well, there's no end to the number of Verhoeven movies. In fact,
we're just throwing out all these people. We're gonna
Hollow Man. Zach's gonna do Hollow Man.
Yeah.
If you do a special episode on his Dutch movies, I've seen all of those. So
I need to check those out. Verhoeven's one of my guys, but I have not really dug into his Dutch originals.
Honestly,
they're wild.
Honestly, this is a good year for original screenplay if you throw out La La Land. Because like Lanthimos for The Lobster, Hell or High Water, Sheridan, that's his best script. Mm-hmm. Mike Mills, 20th Century Women. Lonergan wins for Manchester by the Sea. Lonergan technically wins that because he didn't win his Oscar beforehand for You Can't Count on Me. But
it's a good script.
And it's a great script too, so it's not like it's one of the,
It's actually a great year for lead actress. The fact that Odette Benning isn't in there and I'm not that mad about it.
I mean, she should be.
She would have been my winner this year. That's my.
She's amazing. I mean,
I probably honestly, I'd keep Huppert and Ruth Negga and Portman. If I had to kick a second one out, it was probably Emma Stone. But she's so good in La La Land.
She's actually
she's the best. She's the best of that film. Though Gosling's Gosling. Like
he's just Ken.
He's just Ken. So.
That's
anyway.
He had to walk in La La Land so that he could run.
Yeah.
In Barbie. So.
Well, yeah, and he's gonna run all the way to another Oscar nomination. I don't know who's gonna win. So, all right, Zach.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. No more stories. You got to just tell everybody where they can find you and all your work on the internet.
And also, please give me Michael Mann's phone number.
555.
He's the king of 555 in movies, honestly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you can find me on any social at Zach Laws.
Any.
And I say any because I don't know which ones are going to be around.
That's fair.
By the time this episode comes out, because we're pre-recording this well in advance. And you can find all my work at AwardsWatch. If you want to find me in person, you can find me at Mount Olympus hanging out with Jim the Tool Man Taylor.
Yeah.
Oh.
Jay, where can we find you and all your work on the internet, my friend?
You can find me at your local movie theater, as long as you're in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm seeing The Master in 70 tomorrow.
Holy shit.
I'm stoked.
I remember when I saw that in 70 when it came out. That'll be a glorious experience.
I am so excited. But if you want to find me on the socials, just Twitter at Mr. J Ledbetter, Letterboxd J Ledbetter, and any writing I do, which is at this point fairly rare, at AwardsWatch.
You do writing. We'll get you more writing stuff.
I need to get some. I need to do some. I want to do for every series a little post-mortem director ranking.
Got to do a little Haynes talk.
I need to do the Haynes rank.
Well, while we're gone, playing around in
number 1.
Velvet Goldmine number 2. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, Letterboxd, all the socials at Ryan McQuade77. You can find all my work here at awardswatch.com. You can find all my other work on various other internet sites, playlists, FilmSpeak, all this other stuff. While you're over on this feed, you can listen to the Awards Watch podcast that we do every single week. It's a weekly podcast with these lovely guys as well as the rest of the team, talking about all the up-to-date stuff in the Oscar race. Go to the website, read everybody's reviews from the various film festivals, but also sign up for the newsletter that comes out twice a week. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Next week, we will be back. We will be talking about Blade Runner 2049, which is a movie that you can go and rent on VOD, so you can watch it and follow along with us in this series. So we will be back to talk about Blade Runner 2049 next week. So thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.